invisibles, he sees outer visibles. Himself unhurt, he sees outer objects. He sees few of them. Being rare, these objects are said to be few in number. The path of seeing not being developed in him, the yogin sees objects few in number, for, if he saw a large number of them, he would grasp them with difficulty. In the same way, when deer run about in confusion, one cannot see them from far away. He sees the beautiful or ugly. At the start of the practice, the yogin fixes his mind on an object, the space between the eyebrows, the forehead or the end of the nose. With the notion of unpleasant inner visibles and the notion of unpleasant things in his own body. The yogin sees outer visibles which sometimes will be beautiful by virtue of the retribution for good actions, sometimes ugly by virtue of retribution for bad actions. Furthermore, when the yogin, following the instructions of his teacher, grasps and sees all kinds of unpleasant things in outer objects, this is a matter of ugly visibles. But sometimes when, by loss of attentiveness, the yogin conceives a pleasant notion and sees pleasant visibles, this is then a matter of beautiful visibles. Furthermore, when the yogin by himself fixes his mind on a given place, he sees two kinds of visibles inherent in the desire realm. I. The visibles that give rise to lust, e. The visibles that give rise to hatred. Those that give rise to lust are pleasant visibles described here as beautiful. Those that give rise to hatred are unpleasant visibles described here as ugly. The yogin is master over these objects. He cognizes them by mastering them, he sees them by mastering them. Faced with beautiful visibles, capable of generating lust, the yogin feels no lust. Faced with ugly visibles capable of generating hatred, he feels no hatred. He sees only that visibles coming from the four great elements and from a complex of causes and conditions are lacking in substance like a water bubble. That is how it is for beautiful and ugly visibles. In this abhibhvayatana, the yogin stays on the threshold of the meditation on the horrible. When the fetters of lust, hate, etc. occur, he does not follow them. That is the sphere of mastery of the object, for he masters the mistake that consists of taking as pure that which is impure and the other defilements. Question. While having the notion of inner visibles, how does the yogin see outer visibles? Answer. The 8 abhibhvayatanas can be attained by ascetics who have entered deeply into concentration and whose mind is disciplined and softened. Sometimes the yogin sees the horrible of his own body and also sees the horrors of outer visibles. The contemplation of the horrible is of two types. I. That which contemplates all kinds of impurities, such as the 36 bodily substances, etc. E. That which, disregarding in one's own body as in others' bodies, the skin, flesh and the 5 internal organs, contemplates only the white bones, like a conch shell, like snow. The sight of the 36 bodily substances is called ugly. The sight of the conch or snow is called beautiful. C. The second abhibhvu. At the time he is contemplating inner and outer visibles, the yogin is distracted and only with difficulty can he enter into dhyana. Then he excludes notions of his own body and considers only outer visibles. As is said in the Abhidharma, the yogin who possesses vimoksha contemplates and sees the dead body. After death, the latter is picked up and taken to the charnel ground where, burned by fire and devoured by insects, it disintegrates. From then on, the yogin sees only the insects and the fire, but does not see the body. This is why the Sutra says that not having the notion of inner visibles, he sees outer visibles. In accordance with instructions, the yogin perceives and looks at the body as a skeleton. When his mind is distracted outwardly, he brings it back and concentrates on the skeleton as object. Why is that? At the beginning of the practice, this person was unable to see subtle objects, and that is why the Sutra said in regard to the first abhibhvayatana that the yogin sees only visibles few in number. But now, this yogin, whose path of seeing is developing, deepening and broadening, uses this skeleton in order to see Jambudvipa as skeletons everywhere, and this is why the Sutra says here that he sees numerous visibles. Then he concentrates his mind again and no longer sees a single skeleton. This is why the Sutra says that he cognizes visibles by mastering them and sees visibles by mastering them. And since the yogin is able at will to master the concept of man and woman and the concept of beauty in regard to the 5 objects of enjoyment, that is indeed a sphere of mastering the object. Thus a strong man mounted on his horse who captures the enemy is able to destroy them is said to master them, and, as he is also able to control his horse, he masters it. It is the same for the yogin. In the meditation on the horrible, he is able to do a lot with just a little, and do a little with a lot. That is an abhibhvayatana. He is also able to destroy his enemies, the 5 objects of enjoyment. That also is an abhibhvayatana. When without destroying inwardly the notion of his own body, the yogin sees visibles outwardly, numerous or few in number, beautiful or ugly, that is a matter of the first and second abhibhvayatanas. D. The third and fourth abhibhvas. When, no longer having the notion of visibles concerning his own body, the yogin sees visibles outwardly, numerous or few, beautiful or ugly, that is the third and fourth abhibhvayatana. E. The 4 last abhibhvas. When, having concentrated his mind, the yogin deeply penetrates into the absorptions, suppresses the concept of inner body, sees outer objects perfectly pure, blue and blue in color, yellow and yellow in color, red and red in color, white and white in color, this is a matter of the last 4 abhibhvayatanas. Question. What is the difference between the last 4 abhibhvayatanas and the last 4 krts nayatanas of color, blue, etc. that are part of the 10 krts nayatanas? Answer. The krts nayatana of blue grasps absolutely everything as blue. The corresponding abhibhvayatana sees a large number or a small number of objects only as blue, at will, without, however, eliminating foreign thoughts. Seeing and mastering these objects, it is called abhibhvayatana. Thus, for example, whereas the noble Chakravartin king totally dominates the 4 continents, the king of Jambudvipa dominates only a single continent. In the same way, whereas the krts nayatanas totally dominate all objects, the abhibhvayatanas see only a small number of visibles and dominate them but are unable to include all objects. This is a summary explanation of the 8 abhibhvayatanas. 3. The 10 totalities. As for the 10 krts nayatanas, spheres of totality of the object, we have already spoken of them in regard to the vimoksas and the abhibhvayatanas. They are called spheres of totality because they embrace their object in its totality. Question. Of the 4 formless spheres, Abhibhvayatana, only the first 2, Akasanonjayatana, sphere of infinite space, and Vijnananatyayatana, sphere of infinite consciousness, are krts nayatanas. Why are the other 2 formless spheres? Namely, Akimkanayatana, sphere of nothing at all, and Naivasamnanasam nayatana, sphere of neither identification nor non-identification, not krts nayatanas as well?